to the panelists for, I think, for a very good hearing on a very important topic in terms of access to affordable education. And we've spent a lot of time in committee talking about the burdens of federal regulations, reporting requirements in all forms of education. This question specifically for Dr. Manahan and Mr. Foster's, your experience with your universities. You know, do you have a sense about how much time you spend on federal regulatory and reporting compliance? And do you have some suggestions for us about how regulations and reporting could be eliminated without jeopardizing integrity of the federal financial aid system programs?
I'd be happy to begin with that good question. We have calculated on our campus that, and we're a small campus, we spend about $460,000 a year on salary and benefits to address regulatory issues. And then that's not counting equipment and other things we need to provide them. So what that equals for us is we spend about $300+ a year per student to care for regulatory matters. We certainly believe there are a number of regulations that are very helpful and protective, but those that have less value perhaps and fewer changes to continue adapting to, that is a way to reduce some of that cost, because that is passed on in the cost of the institution. But I would grant you that there are regulations that are very helpful as well to the student as a consumer and other such things. But overreaching regulations make it challenging to carry on funding.
I tried to give you some sense of just a couple of areas. We haven't quantified it, and now I'm glad I haven't, because I'd be just absolutely under my bed lamenting how much we're spending on regulatory compliance. I would say, though, that the federal collection of data we use to compare ourselves to other institutions, and so we track things that the Delta Project puts out, or we actually go mine that information ourselves, because you never know how well you're performing or how poor you're performing without getting it in context. And so I would say the collection area is something that is actually very beneficial, I think, for all of us, because you use common definitions. Everybody knows exactly what that is. It's below that radar screen in terms of increasing, and I appreciate the difficulties with proprietary schools and whatever other issues you're dealing with, but it's pulling us into that vortex that is really starting to tilt and have us spend hours. And we can get you more discrete suggestions in terms of areas. If nothing else, if we just stop changing the definitions in federal financial aid, that would be great, because then we would know and we could tell students year to year exactly what those criteria are.
I just wanted to quickly commend to you the brand new report from the Federal Advisory Committee on Student Financial Assistance that looks at the 15 major areas of Higher Education Act regulations and ways in which burden and overlap and other things can be reduced. And I think that may be helpful in terms of the decision making of the committee.
What role does, from your perspective, the panel's perspective, does the integration of online learning, virtual campus have in increasing access and frankly, potentially decreasing costs?
Huge. Like I said, we represent or cover an area that's fairly rural, more jackrabbits than people in large portions of western Colorado. And so from an access perspective, for them to be able to take classes online, it also equally is a matter of convenience for our students. I think the overwhelming majority on most campuses, online activity, are students who are actually taking classes physically on campus, and they use it to balance their schedule and time management, whether they're working or doing other things. And then there's the obvious avoidance. It's more intense. The theory was you could scale it and have hundreds of students in a classroom, and the experience is not that way. But it certainly avoids bricks and mortars, and so it's extending the life of our classroom buildings, and so we can grow beyond. We anticipate about 20% of our credit hours will be delivered online because of those sorts of things, and so there's a 20% bump in terms of how many classrooms we won't need because of that online activity.
And I mentioned Carnegie Mellon's Open Learning Initiative, which is delivering the same outcomes in half the time for students. Another great example is the Western Governors University, which is online competency-based learning model, which is delivering programs in only 4 key areas: teacher education, business, IT, and nursing, and they're having very high success rate with their competency-based model, but it is using online, and we think there's a lot of potential for those competency-based models using technology to proliferate.
We would agree with that. We, in fact, in this 3-year degree option, the 3 years allows the 2 summers in between to be taken online by courses provided for our campus, or from our campus, and those are tuition free to the students. It allows the student to go, perhaps return to their home for summer employment, whatever they need to do. If they need to fulfill some degree component, traveling to another country, it still allows that. And we have other uses of online as well in our graduate programs.
Okay. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Ms. Davis.